Well, joining us now, let's bring in another team member, shall we? Director of Elections and Surveys for CBS News, Anthony Salvanto. Anthony, good to see you. It's been a while. How you been?
Great to see you. Great to talk to you. I am well. How are you?
I'm great. Well, let's get down to business. What are you finding is motivating voters to actually go to the polls? I mean, here in the city anyway, we're trending and telling our viewers that turnout is going to be low. So for those of those voters that are showing up, what are the trends that you're seeing so far?
Well, you know, I expect you're right, Kristine. It's a summertime election. It's August in New York. A lot of people are going to be out of town. And the other part of this is you've got races that are interesting nonetheless. There's a couple of things. The map behind me is going to fill in at 9 o'clock, of course, when polls close. We're watching a couple of key districts, like you've mentioned. We're watching the Nadler-Maloney race in Manhattan. We're watching the New York 10th. We'll start to see that come in about what is it, half an hour or so. But the larger trends that we're seeing, let me put one thing right in front of everybody from a national context, and that is on the Republican side, where you see a lot of voters who vote in Republican primaries especially looking for that Donald Trump endorsement. In fact, in our polling nationally, Republicans say that a Trump endorsement by 57% makes them more likely to vote for a candidate. Now, what does that mean? It means that Democrats are going to try to make this election in many ways about Donald Trump, because outside of Republicans, he motivates voters on the Democratic side, and he motivates voters to vote for Democrats. But for Republicans, this is an important litmus test. And we have seen throughout these primaries across the country those Trump-backed candidates doing well, most markedly perhaps just last week as Liz Cheney was defeated in Wyoming, Kristine.
Yeah, you know, that's a great point, Anthony, because here in the New York area in the previous couple of years, we had New Jersey, a very blue state, which had a very tight gubernatorial race, and Long Island, Nassau and Suffolk County, had a couple of Republicans win big in counties which are marginally Democratic. A lot of people are worried about enthusiasm, the Democratic vote. Will they come out? And does that mean even a state like New York could be in danger of having perhaps a very close either gubernatorial race or even congressional races?
Right now, in our ratings, we would have New York as overall pretty safely in the Republican column, in the Democratic column. Let me be clear about that. In the Democratic column, statewide. But having said that, New York is an interesting case because of the congressional districts. I expect there to be 4, maybe even 5, depending on whether or not the Republicans can get their base out, to have competitive congressional districts. And this isn't something we always say, but the eyes of the nation are going to be on New York, on districts in Long Island, districts a little bit more upstate, where you're going to see competitive races. Now, that's not what the Democrats had in mind during the redistricting process. They certainly wanted to have a more lopsided map. But the map right now is going to have a few districts. And I think on the congressional side, you're going to see some tight races, folks.
In your research, Anthony, I'm curious what you're hearing from women voters, particularly in regards to Roe v. Wade and how that was overturned by the Supreme Court. How much of a factor do you think that's going to be?
Yeah, I'm flipping through some slides right now, Kristine, and I'll bring one up in a second. But the short answer to your question is that for women under 50, the issue of abortion is just as important as the economy. And that's really important because women, and especially young women, have been such a key part of the Democratic base. And the Democrats need them to turn out, and they need them to vote in big numbers, as they have, as they did in 2018, as they did in 2020, if the Democrats are going to have a shot to maybe stem the Republicans from, getting as many House seats as they possibly could, and, of course, to take some key Senate races. So that's really important. And then what everybody's watching is whether or not that becomes motivating for Democrats overall. The only up there in some of our recent polling has been that Democrats weren't yet convinced that the party was doing enough to protect abortion access. And so it's not just that women and Democrats generally are going to be motivated to vote based on the overturn of Roe v. Wade, but also whether they see the party as an answer. And I think that's going to be one of the key questions for the campaign going forward, Kristine.
As important as the economy. That's pretty significant. Anthony, thank you.